Hello and welcome to a short video getting started with the Nucleo USB scope. First thing you'll need to know is where on the web to find the scope, and the URL is right here. It's also linked from various places on the wiki. Having arrived at the website, you should see something like this. The next task is to program the Nucleo board with the code required to get it to work as a scope. And you can get the code from the website itself. Just press the Get Nucleo v00 binary button and the required file will be downloaded. Open up your Downloads folder and locate the file, and also open a Explorer window for your Nucleo board. You may know that the Nucleo pretends to be a disk drive when you plug it into a computer, and I've just opened a file explorer pointed at that disk drive. We now need to copy the binary file here into the Nucleo board to get it to program the Nucleo board. A few warning messages may come up. Just hit yes, try again, until eventually it works. Now, when you first boot up the USB scope, it's working in loopback mode. So if I enable channel 1, I can get a function generator here producing a sine wave on channel 1 of the oscilloscope, and it's all being generated inside the web browser itself. However, if I connect it to an external Nucleo board, then I can get a real function generator producing a real sine wave going over a wire into a real analog to digital converter, converting the real data and display that on the screen. I have to connect the browser to the Nucleo board to enable that, however, and you do that by hitting the connect button, and then a list of serial ports to connect to will come up here. On my computer, I've only got one. You may have several, but the one to look for is the one labeled ST-Link. Click on that, hit connect, and I'm now connected to the Nucleo board itself. Unlike in loopback mode, where the function generators are only on when the channels are enabled, in Nucleo mode, the function generator is active all the time. So I could select, for example, a sine wave with a peak-to-peak voltage of 1.5 volts and an offset of 1.5 volts, and maybe we'll make the frequency a bit higher than that, say 200 hertz. And there is now a sine wave coming out of the digital to analog converter on the Nucleo board's microcontroller here. And the analog output comes out of pin A2. That's the one there on this side of the Nucleo board. The channel 1 input, which I can enable by pressing channel 1 there, digitizes the analog signal coming in to the A0 input there. Channel 2 is A1, by the way. We can't see a sine wave on the display because there is no wire connecting A2 to A0. But if I were to add one, just going from A2 to A0, then a sine wave appears on the oscilloscope as expected. And from here, we can use all the usual controls on the oscilloscope, the cursors. We can set a trigger level, say up around there, which will allow the scope to trigger if we select channel 1 as the trigger source. We can go to the falling edge as well as the rising edge, and so on. And the vertical scale can be set differently as required. That's about all there is to it. I think the only warning I would add is the inputs to the analog converter are not tolerant of any voltages outside the range of 0 to 5 volts supplied by the Nucleo board itself. So do not use this oscilloscope for any circuit that is not powered from the Nucleo board and which only produce voltages within that range, 0 to 5 volts. The analog to digital converters actually only digitize up to around 3.3 volts. So try and make sure that all of your signals that you want to display are between 0 and 3.3 volts, and then you should be fine. And that really is about it. Let me know of any problems. Thanks.